Suti Dexero. How Perry Caryall plays video games using a headset that reads her mind. Yes, we may or may not be in a day and age where you can play video games hand free, all all brainwave activity. You basically getting one step closer to just being in the video game, if you will. So we'll just play it. Let it speak for itself. Maybe we'll learn something new.
Futuristic and cool.
Perry Carrial is a Twitch streamer with over 60,000 followers who watch her defeat Elden Ring bosses without using her hands. Instead, she uses a headset that reads her mind. So how does it work? Is it possible for a complete noob like you or me to use it? And how much does it cost? But first, what the heck is this thing?
This device is an electroencephalogram, or EEG, and it basically picks up my brain activity and lets me use it and manipulate it for various things. So it works by basically picking up the electromagnetic waves coming out of my brain, and then when it picks that up, it can detect what my brain looks like when I'm thinking about different things. So for example, I will imagine pushing a cube or spinning a plate or something, and it will look at what my brain looks like, then it will record that. I'll do that hundreds of times, and then eventually the software can recognize it. And then with software, if you can recognize something, you can keybind it.
So the headset basically turns your thoughts into buttons, but how does it work in action?
So I locked on by imagining spinning a plate, and then I attacked him a bunch by imagining a little cricket hopping. And then afterwards, because he damaged me, I healed by getting super tense and angry.
Are you better at games with this or with the controller?
Well, it's a lot easier to play games with a controller than with this. But me personally, I've never been very good at games, so I kind of use this to hide behind that fact.
Yeah, obviously, like all content, we don't want to just play it outright. We're gonna, break it down. So we basically got the what and the how, basically, and they're articulating it relatively in layman's terms. So that's definitely appreciated. So basically, they have this headset that reads brain waves, and again, sounds science fiction esque, but it sounds like we are here. And it sounds like they were mentioning, if something can be recognized and even like a pattern, like noticed by it, you can effectively, treat it as just like a keybind. It's kind of interesting how they say like with software they can like detect these things and like like by way of like software, like use technology. I kind of am interested to know what exactly, like what programming do you need to implement to achieve this. I don't know. Maybe it's just a little more research that needs to be done. I guess based off the initial information that's been consumed, are we rocking? Are we rolling with this? Is this every human's dream to one day utilize, or is there hesitancy within among us? We'll start with, what was the order? Let's start with you, Ace. What do you think of this so far?
I don't necessarily see a huge problem with it. Besides the obvious of putting an EEG on your head and um having that thing pulsing magnetic waves into your brain, or not pulsing into your brain, but using that to read your brain waves, doesn't seem super ideal. But just to get away from that obvious issue, if this all it all makes sense. My first, like, I don't know, take on it is it's extremely impressive that she's able to play by imagining specific things. And I think that wouldn't necessarily be the case for most people. Like, being able to imagine something so clearly while playing a game and like getting that visual intake versus just being able to press a button with your finger, like that seemed extremely difficult to me. I can't imagine having that focus to be able, okay, now I gotta imagine spinning a plate, now I gotta imagine, I forgot the other thing she said, or now I have to get angry to heal. Like, that seems difficult. um
Well, I think that's
and
just
it's not.
I think that's just the methodology that they use. Like, I don't think like spinning plates is kind of like a niche thing. I think
No, I know, but you have to have something that you can imagine specifically that will give you the outcome of a specific button press essentially. So whatever it is, like I can't imagine having to flip through different things different things to imagine to have to have the outcome of the game doing what I want it to do. That
I mean
seems
I think
difficult.
it would just become learn behavior at some point.
It's different though because I mean I shouldn't say it's different, but it seems difficult because even though it may be learned behavior, the way our brains work, or most people's brains work, I feel is like it's hard to control your brain. It's hard to control um or prevent like just random thoughts popping into your head or um unwanted thoughts, especially again when you have the input of the game itself. Um have like unwanted thoughts or the thoughts that you don't the specific thoughts that you don't need from intruding and preventing you from just pressing the right button. So like learning to press a button is much simpler in my mind than learning to think of uh, I mean a button press.
I think you're definitely right, and I the reason why this is like not even worth arguing is because you're definitely right in the sense that like button pressing it become like like instinct based, like reflect, like you're just reflexes, like it's time to shoot, it's time to like press a button to jump. I still think it's um in the same room at the very least, because at the end of the day when you're first learning like a video game or something, you're mapping your brain to like a specific thought, like pressing this
Buttons,
button
yeah.
back here, pressing like this combinations of buttons. So I think
Mhm.
yeah, the only thing I think is I don't think it should be outside the realm of imagine what you can imagine. I just think it would probably not be easy for the vast majority of people, because you do bring an
Yeah,
excellent
yeah,
point.
that's what I'm saying.
You do bring an excellent point. And I wonder if they'll address this. Like, how do you stop yourself from thinking certain thoughts, and especially if
Right,
one's like mapped to anger, because video games are by and large one of the most anger inducive things.
right.
So that makes a lot of sense. Um, what about you, Ghost? Are you, from what you're hearing so far, are you rolling with this, or are you gonna put yourself on the pre-order list, or are you a bit hesitant to try something like this, or you're a bit skeptical? I mean,
Um, it sounds interesting. I don't know if there'd be any like for video games specifically. It'd be a little weird for me. But I have thought about this in general, not like the specific science, but like the concept behind using your thoughts in lieu of physical action to do things. I've thought about it a lot while working, to be honest. Like when I'm doing drafting in AutoCAD, like what if I could just envision what I want to draft and how I want to draft it in a way that I didn't have to like specifically uh, do it all out with a mouse. But as far as like hesitancy, I don't think I'll really be hesitant. It just seems very, very strange and abstract. But the way that I guess that they go about like the process that they described, it seems like something that could be applicable. Although it does seem kind of tedious to have to map a certain thought over and over and over before that ends up being translated to an action. But again, very interesting. I would definitely be down to try it at least. I do, as far as like her specific methods of gameplay and kind of tying into what you're saying, Ace, and how it would be difficult to envision doing something completely different and translating that to an action in a video game. I'm wondering, is it like, and this is also a question for Wes because I think you're the only one that it speaks multiple languages among us. When you're speaking another language, do you have to translate the certain thoughts? Like if you're trying to say something, do you have to say it in your mind in French and then translate that to English or vice versa before you can understand it or express it in a certain way, or does it become instinct to do it. And I guess it's kind of a weird equivalency, but I'm wondering, would thinking of a cricket jumping when you're trying to swing, would it be like a translation thing where you have to think of one thing and then it translates to this other completely separate thing, or does it become like naturally second habit to you think of something in French, or you think of something you just immediately know how to say in French without translating to English first?
I see where you're going. Yeah, yeah. But you want me to just answer that question, or you have more?
Yeah, just a general like 'cause I can't believe I've never asked you this before. As someone that
Well,
speaks multiple languages, but I'm curious how it gets translated in your mind.
the funny thing is, like, of course, the earlier you are in the process of learning the language, the more you're literally just translating. But yeah, at a certain point, especially like you do less translation, and you're just like, you know, you have the intent, like it comes to your mind immediately, just like, naturally, like you're speaking English or whatever, the intent of what you're trying to express, and then it goes directly to the phrase or word that is mapped to it. So there's no translation. It's only when you're trying to think up a new formulation of a sentence, or you're like, yeah, or you don't have enough vocabulary to express something, that you actually then find yourself, okay, let me translate this. How would I say it in English? And then you structure it as if you would say it in English. And usually that's not exactly natural to the second language, but usually it can be understood if you're having a conversation or whatever. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, there is an equivalence in that you start to map ideas to words and phrases in the second language as opposed to going through a translation every time. And that's actually the best way to learn. And it's also easiest, yeah, it's easiest when there's things or concepts that you don't encounter frequently in your original language that you're basically learning for the first time in the second language. And then the mapping is just direct. You don't even necessarily know how to say the same thing exactly in English because you don't use that concept much in English anyway.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way to kind of equate that or review that. Um, but yeah, I guess while we're on US, what do you think of this in general? Or something you would be interested in, or not
I
so much?
have to say, certified Babylon team,
Jesus.
but um, I do have to say that I have thought about other methods of input for video games or controlling a computer and things like that. And I do find them interesting, but the problem, like Ace said, is having an EEG hooked up to your head for hours or whatever hour whenever you want to play the game. I don't necessarily like that method of capture, but I remember there was something, and this was like must have been like 15, 20 years ago, if I can say that now. At this point, no, maybe not 20, but like 15 years ago. There was a there was when I was messing around a lot with Linux, there was software for like stuff like this, and I was mad interested. Like there were things where you could do gestures, um, and it would do commands on your computer. It would use your webcam, you
Yeah.
do a gesture, and it would control something on your computer. And it is it is fairly straightforward. Like the the conceptualization of it on a technical level is pretty straightforward. Like it's just like making a shortcut, a hotkey on your computer or whatever. If you take an input with a specific characterization, a specific profile, you say this is A or whatever. You just map it to a letter, you map it to a character, and every time you do that thing or you say that thing or whatever the input is, it will do the thing. So I can understand it on that level. It's just you have certain things that create graphs with certain shapes on the EEG, and those correspond to certain actions. I was surprised though to hear that it was, as we all kind of mentioned, that it is abstracted to a thought about something other than you playing the video game. Like I would think that you map the thought of you jumping in the game to, and then the brainwave that corresponds to that to the character jumping in the game. But I guess that's not necessarily as universal. Where if you play another game,
Yeah.
you might maybe if you're thinking of a different character or a different jump mechanism, it might get a little bit blurry, or it might not have enough fidelity. So certain thoughts probably provoke more activity in certain parts of the brain, and therefore are different enough to trigger the action more discreetly. I think that's probably why that happens, and that's
Yeah.
interesting that might be the case. I think that maybe with improved technology, you could get more specific brain waves corresponding to specific actions, so that it could be more adapted to the game. But yeah, in general, this doesn't really appeal to me. Although I think she's a very good marketer because, or
Yeah.
good at her marketing of her social media or whatever it is, Twitch or whatever, because she says she's not good at games, and this gimmick, if you will, allows her to pull in an audience, which is something that I would probably do, have some type of gimmick, because I'm not that good at games either. Not particularly good. So
Yeah, I was thinking very similar thoughts. It's kind of interesting. I wonder if they'll get into it more. When they mention like um the thought of like getting angry correlating to something in action, that makes sense to me because in my mind, and it depends on word level of specificity where you are with the software and technology in general. I can easily attribute like a feeling that comes to your mind as being able to attribute an action. But yeah, when it comes to like specific like if you're saying in order to swing your weapon, you think of another literal animal action, like maybe even like direction or something like that. That lends to that action. That kind of gets me. I wonder what the nuance is to like get you to your thought or what that wave looks like and relate
yeah,
to the action of the in the game.
I do think though, like in general, the brain is pretty insane in that I think you can develop this probably more quickly than it would seem on paper on paper, because the brain just that is how the brain functions in finding patterns and things like this. But the other thing is that as far as brain scans, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously there's some repeatability, but I also know like the expectations of or I've heard expectations of certain brain or certain thoughts or experiences or emotions, states, whatever, corresponding to exact places in the brain. Like this is not an exact science. So, and I don't know if there's a consistent repeatability, which I guess there is some, but I would wonder if every time she thinks about like on what percentage like she's able to do the thing consistently, just because of the way that the brain is not exactly, it doesn't seem to be easy to map as far as repeatability, or as far as
That
we
is
think that this part of the brain is going to do
that,
this and that.
that is a good point. From what they've said so far, and we'll watch the rest of it afterwards. I wonder if the location is one of the most is like the most important factor. I don't know if where that thought is not originating, but where it's like resonating from 100% lead to the action, or
I
maybe
think
just have maybe would have an impact, a high level of impact.
I think it might, right. It might not matter. It might just be that like if this and this place lights up for this specific person, you can map it, but it might not be the same thing in somebody else's brain because whatever. But for the consistency of the person, maybe that's good enough.
I will say, kind of to what you were saying, but maybe also kind of adverse to it. To be clear, I do think this does sound relatively challenging, and it's interesting how they're using a game like Dark Souls or Elden Rings as an example of it. So I guess like I do think like I guess this whole thing is to see if somebody off the street could do it as well. But I can't. I just can't imagine. I feel as if it would take first of all a decent level of time for mapping, and then even once you map things, like it's just like again a thought throwing your whole game off could easily happen in my from what I'm thinking so far. But um, go ahead and play it so we can see if maybe some of our questions get answered.
Harry has thousands of hours playing this way, but how easy is it for a complete noob? I decided
There
to
we
try
go.
it myself. Before I could start playing, I had to teach the software how my brain works.
So the first thing you want to do is you want to imagine you're playing the game, but you don't want to push any buttons.
Does it help if you close your eyes?
No, it makes it horrifyingly bad. Fun part is getting your command in. So you can use mine.
I had one simple task. If I could get the block to move by thinking of a pushing block, I would be ready to play Elden Ring.
Basically,
That's cool.
it's looking at what your pattern of brain activity there, and if it was the same as the one you did before. So it was a little bit the same.
So I had the controls locked down. Now it was time to try out my skills in the game. While my actions were determined by my brain.
See, that's one of the things I feel like they're focused on, like, you know, and this video is well made. They're so focused on like trying to like quickly articulate like the process. Like, how long did that take? I would want to know more specific into like, did you slightly modify the way you thought about pushing it, or did you just say one single train of thought for however long to finally get it to move? Go ahead and play it.
The movement relied entirely on eye tracking, which took some getting used to.
Oh, I'm in a corner. This is not good.
Okay, there you go.
Oh, if I lean my head back, I go backwards. Okay,
Yeah.
That's worth knowing.
Like a joystick.
Now I knew how
Don't that remind you of like when you're playing a racing game and you start doing this with the controller? Even though it has no impact on it.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
to avoid constantly running into walls. I had one simple objective: get a kill.
Yeah, okay, now you can attack him. Woo! You got him, you got him, you got him.
Oh, he's skewering me. No.
Oh
She's skewering me.
no! Can't die in the arena, so that's useful as well. Get him, get him, get him.
Come on. It's a delay. The delay hurts it as well. There's so much going on.
I think you killed him, or something. He lay back down again. Maybe he got bored. Yeah.
We'll say that counts.
That counts. He gave up. He surrendered.
I made them give up.
Yes, because you were so intimidating.
How much did it cost to put together?
So I built it up slowly, so the price of it was quite distributed. But this headset was about £1,000, which is cheap for EEGs, but of course not cheap. And then eye tracker is another 300, and then my time is meaningless, so we won't include that. And all of this, probably not that expensive actually, like 1.5K maybe altogether.
Anyone have the quick maths on what that translates to USD?
I know Google does.
Is it double?
Double it, yeah.
Double? No. I know
probably
it's not
20.
double.
It's probably 2,800.
1962.
Oh, really? It's not near a double. 1,500?
That isn't as bad as I thought it'd be, to be honest.
I mean, for effectively a gaming headset, that is, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I'm from a technology standpoint, I guess it's more worms.
Anyway,
But yeah.
hearing all the facts of the matter, I guess any conclusive thoughts on it? Is this something? Do you think this will gain popularity? Do you think it's going to be something that's going to be something that anybody can use one day? We saw the success, if you want to call it that, of somebody who allegedly had no prior use of it. It seems like it didn't necessarily translate to any high level success. And for those who, I don't know if it's a specific boss or place or even event, but for those who may not know, Elden Ring and Dark Souls games are notoriously difficult. So if someone can excel in those games, like that's like the highest level, damn near some of the highest level of gaming. I would also be interesting to see if they could apply this to fighting games, because that's also a very difficult. Like you have to be very instinctive in those type of games. But yeah, based on what are y'all conclusive thoughts on seeing this video?
I meant to say before, and I'll include this.
Yeah, go ahead.
The use case for a lot of this, when I was looking into it as well, was handicapped people,
disabilities.
people who have impairments,
Yeah.
Yeah.
who can't use a mouse or can't use, a joystick and things like this. And for that case, I think it's pretty cool. I think you'd have to, weigh the risk of a consumer EEG. I don't know anything about exactly how it works and how if there could be any side effects or weird
Yeah,
impacts.
y'all keep bringing that up. I'm
Uh,
pretty sure this person
but
thinks about that too. Obviously, maybe they're just willing to take the risk.
yeah,
But
but I never knew there
if it
was like
really is,
a consumer headset EEG that you can just buy for £1,000 online or whatever. I don't know how she did it or how she set it up, or if she had to do a bunch of modding or not.
but I'm
Yeah, I
just
didn't
saying,
know
even
that.
if in the future it's shown that it does cause problems, won't they just like give you like a lead head cover or something like that?
I think that might mess with the readings.
A very light, basically like a lead do rag.
Let's do it.
I
Sorry, go
don't know,
ahead.
but yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't think I had anything else to add. Yeah. I mean, it was interesting to see that it seems to be fairly thrown together by this person. I thought there might have been more involved as far as the setup. I don't
Hey
know.
man, this day and age, like there's so much information at our hands, and technology is way easier to come across. Like to be honest, I'm surprised it's not some random stoner from India putting this together.
Probably got it. Like it's not that. It's not that baffling. The technology itself, like it makes a ton of sense. I almost feel
Yeah, no,
like I could
I
set
mean, I
this up
said that.
myself.
Yeah, that's what I was. I feel like that too, but I didn't know the product that you can just. Oh, yeah, let me just grab a EEG where I can
Yeah,
set up
yeah.
Bluetooth and whatever. Like I didn't know it was that readily available. It seems to be.
Fair enough. Ace, your conclusive thoughts?
Um, this is interesting because like one part of me feels like this is not the going to be the way we get to um like virtual realities where your imagination or what you like you being in a virtual space. I don't think it's going to go this way. This feels like it's just an alternative way to use a controller, and that feels like it's the limit. But at the same time, if you combine this with a virtual headset, um I could see a possibility where the technology of recognizing the thoughts becomes nuanced enough where um like you're you could have more nuance to what you think in order to accomplish an action, but also the whole like okay, imagine a spinning plate to do something specific. um it could get to the point where that becomes abstracted away enough in your brain where like imagining a spinning plate is not is not like the departure that I would think is in my brain. Like if I'm playing Elden Ring and I have to imagine a spinning plate, that feels like a super large departure from playing the game or imagining an attack or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I almost feel like it could get to the point where the brain adapts enough to where um imagine a spinning plate is it feels natural to do. Um,
Yeah,
so I
that's what I was getting at. The brain
yeah,
is set up
right.
to do stuff like that. So once you get into the habit of it, it kind of I think it creates a new connection where you're just like, this is the move. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yep. And coincidentally, I just read a short story by Ted Chiang called I think The Truth of Fact and the Truth of Fiction or The Truth of Feeling. And it talks about something kind of similar where it's there's this technology that can essentially you speak into it or you basically wear like a camera at all times, like you have a camera somewhere on you at all times and it records everything that happens in your life. And there's a voice recognition software that gets set up where if you say something, it'll project what you're saying I don't know if it was if it was on like glasses in the book, or if it was like a retinal projection or something like that. But it'll project that memory. So like um so the what the or what the story posits is like eventually it'll get to the point where people saying something in order to remember something could eventually get to the point where that becomes like people's default for how they remember anything. So it gets to the point where like okay, people would have perfect recall because their instinct will be to just sub vocalize what they want to remember,
Hmm.
whenever they're trying to remember something, and that'll be shown to them as opposed to having to rely on actual memory. And this is a science fiction story, but in that story, that hypothesis seemed like it could be valid as well, just because of how adaptable the brain is to like patterns and recognition and
Yeah,
changing to meet the new technologies that we develop. So it could be the future. Yeah, I guess.
got you. Definitely interesting connection. Last but not least, Ghosts. What are your conclusive thoughts about this tech?
Yeah, I mean, Asen was pretty much covered it, and I do think the fact that this is kind of just a jerry rig setup, and this wasn't like some super in depth study or there's like a ton of money behind this kind of leads me to believe that this can be the future because as this gets more developed and more widespread, I feel like it's only going to get easier and easier to map your thoughts and all the difficulties and the hangups that have been brought up will kind of be solved to some extent. And I think once that happens, again, I can see this becoming a lot more widespread. But it's just very interesting.
I agree. If nothing else, it's definitely interesting. Yeah, a lot of um points and thoughts and connections that make a lot of sense in relation to this. I don't know. My
So
bottom
grab
line
a
is
EEG on Amazon for a couple $100.
that is definitely one of the moral stories. My so my bottom line is just that I definitely think this is feeds into some of the technological advances that we're definitely going to see a lot of in the future. Like was mentioned, it definitely is something that benefits those less fortunate, or not less fortunate, just those with disabilities or handicapped in some regards. And it's historically has been used. Some of this stuff is already emotional, where people that don't have all the faculties of their like joints and limbs, they use things like this, not to play video games, but to like but to illustrate their needs and or what they're thinking. Yeah, and by and large, I think it's definitely something that people want. So definitely, even if you're a bit hesitant, it's definitely going to be something that people use in the future. And I think you Ghost I mentioned it, but definitely something I think could pop up in the workplace as well. Because people can use these things to offload having to type and do all do everything with that, then obviously I think even corporations would want to make use of that.
Oh, uh, slight tangent. I've used what do you call it, Oculus at work to go inside of a design and move around and manipulate things in a design
Huh.
that we created or installment. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
There you go.
Nice.
It 15 years earlier, who would anyone think that was what was going to be the how we operate within a workspace? Um, but yeah, cool stuff. If nothing else, we can move on to the next topic.